We've got a bonus episode of Boy Green Daily, baby. The Jets made some seismic trades that have changed the future of the New York Jets. For better, for worse, we'll talk about it. A special guest joins us. A bonus Boy Green Daily starts.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Let's go!
Put your seatbelts on. Get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
What's crack-a-lackin', everybody? I'm Paul Liston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to a bonus episode of Boy Green Daily, where we talk all things New York Jets. I'm your humble host, Paul Liston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green, the bearded individual you see on your screen. But it's time to bring on a very special guest here on the program. He's the straw that stirs the drink for Pro Football Focus, the PFF NFL Stock Exchange, the man that wears the C on the chest in the PFF building, baby. He is our Lord Commander of Pro Football Focus, Trevor Sikkema, baby.
Paul, it's always good to be with you, my friend. Nobody gives an introduction like you do. I honestly, that's why I want to come on the show. Like, talking football, obviously, I enjoy talking football with you. It's a lot of fun, but that's the selling point. The intros are absolutely the selling point, so it's great to be with you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you being a straight shooter, Trevor. That's what a lot of people adore about you, despite your great looks and your family and PFF and the stock up on your life, my friend. So I appreciate you taking the time. We've done this. I just mentioned it right before we hit the record button. Like, good Lord, there's some Jets-Bucks actions earlier this season that I would prefer to forget. But then also we've done some draft stuff together, so this is great. So we're doing it again, and Trevor, good Lord have mercy. People have told me, the trade deadline, boring. Nothing happens there. My phone alerts would say differently, Trevor Sikkema, because Sauce Gardner gets moved to the Colts. Quinnen Williams gets moved to the Cowboys. I mean, absolutely massive franchise-altering things just occurred, and the Jets are now armed with 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. First off, let's just start off with the deals. The Jets striking a trade with the Dallas Cowboys for Quinnen Williams. The Jets striking a trade with the Indianapolis Colts for Sauce Gardner. What did you make of the haul they received?
Yeah, the haul that they got back, I thought was great. You know, the real debate sort of comes from the other teams at this point, right? I mean, like, for the Colts, all right, you're trading 2 first-round picks for a corner. As good as one is in Sauce Gardner, like, is that really a price that you want to pay for a cornerback? Not a pass rusher, not a quarterback himself, like a corner. And so I think that's really where the debate comes from. But certainly from the Jets side of things, you just signed him to a massive contract. So you got to think about that as well. The Colts didn't negotiate this contract. Now, very clearly they're okay with it, but very rarely do you get a team to give up a lot of draft capital and take on a contract. I mean, we see that all the time. It's part of the negotiations where if somebody's contract is coming up the next offseason or something like that, you always have to factor that in the deal, right? You go like, well, he's probably with a first-round pick talent-wise, but the team's going to have to trade for him and sign him, so that sort of goes into the deal. Maybe he goes for a second-round pick. For Sauce, they couldn't have dreamed of getting more back for him, and I think that's actually where a lot of this stems. Is it sure sounded like Darren Mougey, the general manager of the Jets, it kind of sounded like, okay, sure, we'll take phone calls on all of our players, but we're not going to give these guys away. And what I read is that the Colts just kept coming back and upping the offer and upping the offer and upping the offer until we got to a point where Mougey was like, I can't say no to this. And I don't blame him at all whatsoever. So that package that they got back for Sauce Gardner is fantastic. For Quinnen, it was kind of the same thing, right? Because Quinnen, it's been reported that he kind of wants to rework his deal or extend his deal or whatever that is, and it feels as though the Jets weren't really willing to do that because they didn't even know where their winning window was going to be, which is important. Them getting a first-round pick from the Cowboys and a second-round pick from the Cowboys, I mean, again, like I think that's excellent work from them to be able to do that. That's fantastic. And the only real debate, in my opinion, is on Dallas's side, right? Where you go, okay, well, you like part of the Micah Parsons deal was getting Kenny Clark back, and now you've already traded a ton of assets for a player that you kind of wouldn't have to trade for if Kenny Clark was the guy that maybe you told us he was. Now, Quinnen's better than Kenny Clark. I'm not trying to say that they're the same player, but really, when it comes to both of these trades, the only debate of value comes from the teams that the players went to. For the Jets, I think you have to look at both of these trades and go, my goodness, like if you're going to move on from big-time pieces, it's hard to imagine they could have possibly gotten anything better, and I really don't think they could have. So a job well done from Darren Mougey. If he was going to move players, he moved them for the right price.
Well, Darren Mougey wasn't the only one cooking. Look at these Trevor Sikkema tweets, man. They get me every gosh darn time. Some Gordon Ramsay action? Hell's Kitchen,
He was cooking.
man.
He was cooking on the phones, man.
Ooh, baby. And some great action there from old Darren Mougey. Now, let me ask you this, Trevor, because I wanted you on for a lot of reasons, because you're our draft guy. You're the main squeeze. You're the bell cow, okay? When PFF's looking to talk draft, they put that ball in the middle of your chest, and you secure the football, buddy, and you talk it. So I want to go to this, because there's a unique negotiating point that happened here between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Jets. Mm-hmm. And they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And ultimately, in the negotiation, the Jets say, hey, what about, okay, you guys are all a little, crazy about the 2026 first. Hey, we'll take it to 2027. No problem. That was like, all right, works for us. Okay, you can have that first, and we'll take a second. We'll send you over a second for 2026. And so I'm curious for you, Trevor, because you study the draft, you're the draft guy. For casual Jet fans that haven't looked ahead that far, they say, why would they take the first in 2027 versus 2026? Tell us why that was a good or bad move, or the thought process that went into that.
I think that it was it was the perfect move for them for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, this upcoming class in 2026, there are going to be difference-making NFL players. I want to make that very clear. But it's not this can't-miss, unbelievably talented class that sometimes we've seen in years past. It felt like, the 2022 class was loaded with guys like that. The 2020 class was loaded with guys like that, right? And these were just incredibly strong draft classes where you could get to the picks in the mid-20s, and you're getting players that maybe in some years would be considered for the top 12 and the top 10. It does not appear as though this upcoming class in 2026 is going to be like that. It feels a little bit more of a down year overall. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't find difference-making NFL players. You can. It's just maybe not as easy. The target that you're throwing the dart at is a little bit smaller this year than it is in other years. 2027 doesn't look that way. I know that the grass is always greener, and it's always a glass half full when you're looking at future draft classes. There's no doubt about that. But it does really look like, specifically from a skill position standpoint, from a pass rusher standpoint, and then what the Jets need to know from a quarterback standpoint, it feels very strong in 2027, which sets the Jets up for an ideal way to approach this draft class. When you have a draft class where you look at it surface level on the whole, and you say, it's just not as strong or as deep as it maybe a normal draft class is or a great draft class is. What you want to make sure that you do is free yourself up to take best player available whenever you come on the clock. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself, because if you do, that's when you start to really get into trouble with these draft classes that might be a little bit less talented. So if the Jets can go into a situation now with the Cowboys 2027 pick for the first round instead of 2026, they can go into this exercise this year knowing that they have 2 first-round picks already and say, we don't have to take a quarterback. Whoever falls to, like, if we have a quarterback that falls to us, or if we have the opportunity to maybe trade up a little bit and go get a guy that we absolutely love, we'll do that. But if not, let's strengthen the rest of the roster. And it kind of feels like that's what Aaron Glenn's been wanting to do, right? Even going back to the summer, and I'm on the outside from Jet stuff, so I kind of only see the headlines. But, like, even when he got there and he was non-committal on Breece Hall, right? And I know that they've sort of worked it out since then, and obviously Breece has been a big part of their offense. But, like, even that at the beginning, where he just is like, no, you got to earn your spot in this team. Like, who? Like, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he's like, I don't know who's going to be in what spots, when it comes to the season. It's like, okay, to me, that very much spells out, I didn't draft any of you. I didn't sign any of you. And unless you really prove it to me, no one is untouchable. No one is unmovable. And I'm going to get the guys that I like on this team. That's a multi-year rebuild type of a thing. And that's, if you're going to have that attitude, you have to go into the draft thinking I'm taking best player available that we view as the best player for the New York Jets. Not just the best player at corner, not just the best player at quarterback, not just the best player at wide receiver. Those factors go into it, but you got to free yourself up a little bit here. So that's why I love the move for them to get the Dallas Cowboys 2027 pick, because it gives you so much more flexibility in this draft to take the players you want, because it gives you a longer term view, and it allows you to have more darts to throw at the dartboard in what seems like a much more talented draft class a year from now.
And to add an extra wheel, you tell me if this means anything to it. So you say it beautifully with flexibility and optionality. Is the other piece time? You have 3 first in 2026. The Jets have to make that decision in the next 5, 6, 7 months, whatever it is, depending on whenever you're listening to this interview. You have to have that chunk of time. Oh, geez, we need to bake this in pretty quick. 2027. Whoa, we've got all the time in the world to evaluate if whatever that class is. Grass is always greener for future draft classes. But we have all the time in the world, and scouts, and that's a GM's job. A foot in the present and a foot in the future. Time is an element that seems to be added here, getting that 2027 versus 2026. Is that a big contributing factor?
It is. And I think it's an interesting way. There's an interesting way to look at the time too, because one might say, hey, you just traded away 2 of your most talented players on the roster. You don't have the quarterback of the future yet. And so I think a lot of people might look at this and say, okay, well, Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn now probably at least have the next 3 or 4 years. But I don't know if I would totally agree on that. Mougey is a little bit different because you can't exactly tell what's going on behind the scenes. I think the people in the building are the only ones who can really evaluate what's going on there. But there's no doubt about it that Aaron Glenn is zigging while others are zagging, right? And he is a little bit against the grain in how he approaches podium sessions, the media, how he approaches just like decisions on the field on game day. Like he is very much a by his way type of a coach. And I think there is some allure when it comes to guys who go against the grain, because they're standing in their convictions and they're going with their gut, and you love that about them, especially a guy as passionate as Aaron Glenn. However, to me, this actually puts more pressure on him, because obviously the Jets aren't playing well this season. Some of the moves that they made this offseason, not exactly going to plan. That's why they're at this point. Now, I do think it's a little bit unfair, because I think that if the ball bounces a different way, maybe against the Steelers, against the Buccaneers, you got a couple more wins. Maybe it doesn't look as bad. So I want to make sure that I recognize that as well. But all of a sudden, 2026 season becomes very important for Aaron Glenn to show growth. Does he have to make the playoffs? No. Very tough division. The Patriots now are what they are. The Bills are still going to be really good. Does he have to make the playoffs? No. But if he doesn't show considerable progress, then you get into a point where ownership, the general manager, whoever is making the decision goes, I don't want this guy in charge of 3 first-round picks for us. So where, yes, the timeline could potentially be now stretched out for Aaron Glenn and their evaluation of everything, I also think there's a world where it's actually a little condensed. And if he does not show progress, and if the culture is not moving in the right direction, and the players don't love playing there and all that kinds of stuff, next year, they could potentially say, we don't want to invest our 3 first-round picks into this current regime. We will move on. So it is one of those things where, yeah, the timeline could be stretched out a little bit for him, but I also feel as though he could be viewed in a more critical lens, maybe when it comes to that 2026 season.
Very fair. Again, we're speaking with Trevor Sikkema, Tampa Bay Trey, they call him in the streets, and he's joined us here on the program for a bonus episode of Boy Green Daily. Like the video and hit subscribe wherever you may be viewing this program. Trevor, you already have a million jobs, so let's add this to the LinkedIn profile. I'm making you the decision maker, the head honcho. You are armed with the 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, and you have all the cap space that the Jets have at their disposal. I'm not going to ask you to build the entire offseason. I only have one question. How do you, Trevor Sikkema, attack the quarterback position? Because you could go draft, you could go free agency, could go trade. The Jets are literally in the perfect position. If a quarterback surprisingly becomes available, it's the NFL, crazy crap happens. The Jets could be in that position and say, hey, we're going to go the veteran route again. We tried that with Aaron Rodgers, didn't work out, but let's try that version again, and we could build around him. Let's go long term. We're just going to draft our own guy. That's the Jets have tried that several times. Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, among them, that has not worked out. But still, they're going to have to pick one of these paths. If you're running the ship, you're the boss, you're the guy. What are you doing to attack the quarterback position with the assets and capital that you have available?
I think, to your point, bringing this up, the quarterback that is going to be at the center of all this conversation when it comes to a trade partner is Kyler. I think Kyler Murray is going to be the guy that everybody talks about, where very clearly I think that there is some sort of rift in Arizona. They're not happy with where the franchise is. They're not happy with what he has been since he came back from injury. I know the year before that he was playing at MVP level, but he has not reached that yet again. So he's under a big contract. It feels like both of those parties could be mutually parting ways, and I think the Jets make a lot of sense potentially as a landing spot for him if you would want him. Now, it's hard because, like, good quarterbacks don't really become available too often, and Kyler is very talented, but there's also a reason why Arizona would be moving on. So that one you really have to look at through a critical lens. I don't love the idea of that. I'll tell you this. If I'm the Jets, I really like the potential of Ty Simpson in this draft, the quarterback from Alabama. I think that even as just a one-year starter with only a handful of starts this year, because this is the only year that he's been out there as the main quarterback for Alabama, he shows so much. He shows so much growth and just so much NFL play in his tape. I mean, he's not afraid to attack over the middle. He can attempt those layered throws. He knows when to throw the changeup, when to throw the fastball. He's making protection adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Like I feel like he is a future starting NFL quarterback. The question is, do you think he's ever going to be a top 10 NFL quarterback? And if you don't, then I'd probably pass on him this year. And the more that I think about it, the more I like the idea of them not taking a quarterback in this upcoming draft. Because I do think there's a lot of these guys that we potentially talk about in this class. Lenora Sellers, John Mateer, Sam Levitt, even Dante Moore from Oregon. I think it's more likely than not all of those guys go back to school. I just think that their stocks could be so much higher if they stay another year, and that continues to load on that 2027 NFL draft class. And so I think Ty Simpson's the one that I look at and I say I would be interested in him. If we get to, get to sit him down at the combine and get to know him and have him in for a pro visit and all that kinds of stuff, and we just love who he is, I could see them really wanting to take a chance on a guy like Ty Simpson. But other than that, I like the idea of going best player available here in the early part of the first round and the late part of the first round, it seems like, with the Colts pick here in 2026. And I like the idea of just all hands on deck evaluating the 2027 quarterback position. Now, that puts sort of the franchise in a little bit of limbo, which is tough to do. It's tough to sell the team to say, like, hey, we're just not going to be good this year. And so that's really that's the difference of my seat here versus Darren Mougey and Woody Johnson's seat, because that a year is a long time to tell the fan base, hey, we're not going to be very good. And so that's sort of the tough sell to me for what I just kind of talked about there. But perhaps there's another veteran out there that maybe you might be able to go for. I don't know any off the top of my head, but obviously there's the Baker Mayfield stories, the Sam Darnold stories. Like there are these redemption stories for some of these quarterbacks. And if you feel like you got the right coach and offensive coordinator to be able to get the most out of those guys, maybe you could sell that to the franchise and say, hey, we're taking a one-year flyer, but if not, we got these 3 first-round picks that we are going to be loaded with. But what I really don't want to do is force a quarterback pick when I don't have to here in 2026. And so I think I lean much more towards the wait for 2027 to take a quarterback, but I understand that that's a lot easier said in my seat than in their seat.
A quick follow-up on that. There is a quarterback that Jet fans are starting to become infatuated with in this 2026 draft, and it is Fernando Mendoza.
Sure.
That's someone that you haven't talked about. What's sort of your evaluation there on Heisman Mendoza, as some fans like to say?
Yeah, the Mendoza, as we have sometimes called him on the NFL Stock Exchange show. Look, he is having a really great year, and I think he has solidified himself as one of the best quarterbacks in this upcoming class. Now, it's not one of the most talented quarterback classes out there, but he is still in that conversation. It's Ty Simpson, it's Fernando Mendoza, it's Dante Moore. Mendoza's got the NFL arm. I think he's got the ability to hit all the throws that you would want him to at the NFL level. I've seen him hit a bunch of those opposite hash, sideline out throws that take a lot of timing and a lot of arm talent to be able to hit. He's had some deep throws that have just been very beautiful and impressive that he's been able to hit, even down the intermediate middle of the field as well. So I've seen him hit the throws that you want at the NFL level. He's just a little inconsistent, and I think that's sort of how I'm evaluating him right now. And I think Fernando Mendoza can be a starting quarterback at the NFL level. I don't see a player right now who I go, yes, franchise changer. And I even like Ty Simpson a little bit more in that regard because I think that he has been a little bit more consistent with the stuff that you would ask for him to do at the NFL level. Both of these guys can do it, but I like what I've seen from Simpson a little bit more in that regard. And with Mendoza, he is somebody that I would consider. But again, the way that I view him right now, it feels like he would be a top 10 overall pick in this upcoming draft class. Right now, I'd let somebody else take him. Like, if I was the Jets, and Simpson's not available for me, I would be going best player available approach basically throughout the whole draft. So Fernando Mendoza does good things. I think he could be an NFL starter. I think he has got that ability. But he doesn't quite yet. Now, they're probably going to play Ohio State for the Big Ten championship, looks like. They're going to be in the college football playoff. We got some big football games for Fernando Mendoza to play from this point on. But as of right now, he's not the guy that I'm pounding the table for saying we've got to take him. Because then after that, you got to remember, when you draft a franchise quarterback, a guy that you believe is a franchise quarterback, your job does not stop there on draft night. It is then your job over the next couple of seasons to build everything around him the right way. Not only is he a player that you think has starting ability, is he a player that you want to build the whole thing around? I think all of that goes into the conversation about a franchise quarterback. And so I think he's got the ability, but I'm still a little bit hot and cold on how consistent he'll be at the NFL level with it.
All right, let's wrap up here. One of my favorite things you guys do at the PFF NFL Stock Exchange is fix your franchise. I love that bit. You guys get to be GMs, you're signing free agents, doing mock drafts, having conversations. Now, it's one of those ones that I love, but you don't want to see your own team in there. That means your team's doing terrible. So it's sort of, I was very conflicted watching the most recent. I'm like, yeah, fix your franchise. Wait a second again. So, there was a little back and forth there. But I want to ask you this, Trevor, because you have your co-host there extraordinaire, of course, Connor Rogers, Jets know-it-all man. So you had a great partner in crime as you were going through this fix your franchise. What did you learn from doing this process? Because you guys do a lot of prep that goes into this. The graphics are coming on the screen of free agents that you identified. Ooh, this would be a free agent I'd like. Or as you're talking mock draft scenarios, so that's going through the process. So what did you learn from doing the Fix Your Franchise? We'll make sure we link that in the YouTube description down below if you guys have not seen it. It's a great deep dive, talking all things New York Jets. So what did you learn from going through that exercise?
Yeah, I think I learned a couple of things. And honestly, like the things that I learned kind of come out in the way that I've talked about the team to you over the last 20 minutes or so. And that is that I am much more comfortable with this team not taking a quarterback in this upcoming draft. And you kind of go over the roster and you look at sort of where they are in their winning window. Like, hey, the Patriots are kind of there right now. You know, the Bills, they're right now, but over the next couple of years, are they going to be there? They could be taking a step back. So the timing of the Jets' next winning window, I think, lines up really well for them to not have to take a quarterback in this upcoming class. I certainly learned that the offensive line is great, and you don't often have a lot of teams where you look at their offensive line and you go, actually, yeah, we're kind of good to go here. And it feels like they are in that regard. I mean, they could bring back Elijah Vera Tucker. They could bring back John Simpson. And if that's the case, man, you feel even better about it as long as AVT is healthy, of course. I know that's a big if and maybe why he wouldn't be back. But this offensive line, really strong right now. And I think that that's a great thing for them moving forward. On the defensive side of the ball, I think certainly attacking that interior defensive line spot now becomes paramount without Quinn Williams. You know, we talked about adding Travis Jones, the defensive tackle from the Baltimore Ravens, drafting Caden McDonald, the big run stuff for Ohio State. Like, just the combination of those guys there. I think that allocating a lot of resources into maybe that defensive line to make that a little bit better. That was something that I learned. But they've got a lot of cap space. They got a lot of flexibility. This team's going to have a ton of options, and that's the dream of a general manager. I think Darren Mougey is in a spot that very few general managers are in at any point in time throughout their NFL front office careers, and that they have the cap space to work with. They have basically a blank canvas roster now at this point, and they have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. And so this is kind of armchair GM's dream, and even a GM's dream, to be the one making the decisions and think about everything that they have on the table. So to be honest with you, just what I learned is that this team is more of a blank canvas than maybe any other team that I've ever seen, with the 2 trades that they just made at the deadline, the cap space that they have to work with, the timeline of the front office guys and the coaching staff, the timeline of the quarterback. Like, everything is just there for them. And so really what I learned is that you've really got a 2-year plan here that you've got to build out. And the more that Connor and I talked about it, the more I was like, man, I'm not forcing a quarterback pick this offseason. I'm not. I'm building towards something that I think can sustain. And when the Bills maybe take a step back down from their winning window, the Jets are right there to capitalize it on as one of those up-and-coming teams in the NFL.
Well, Trevor, Jet fans are normally very akin to Pro Football Focus because of every year being the draft being our Super Bowl. So this year will be no different. We'll be eating and consuming all the content that you bring to the table. I just want to say I love having you on the show. You're terrific. You're fantastic. And you're an absolute superstar. I don't know what else hell is left on your bucket list, buddy, because every single day I'm seeing check things off, man. So you better start adding things as quickly as you're checking them off, man, because you got a lot of life to live. You're a young man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. And a lot more shows to do with you as well, because I really enjoy you having me. I really enjoy the football conversations. Always great to catch up with you. I can't wait for us to do one of these shows where we're talking about a Jets playoff matchup.
Oh,
right?
Oh,
Come on.
Okay.
Let's get one of those over the next couple of years. That's next on the bucket list. That's the next thing to check off is a playoff matchup with you here on the show. But I appreciate you having me, man.
Blessed be he. Hopefully before I'm dead, Trevor. That's my goal. So I'd love to see that happen. You're the best, buddy. We'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Bob.